Are you a romance anime fan? Sick and tired of watching the same popular show like Kaguya-sama or Rent-a-Girlfriend? Don't worry, because we've answered your prayers. From underrated ones like the Pet Girl of Sakurasou to completely unknown gems like Sing Yesterday for Me, we've compiled a list of the top 20 underappreciated romance anime that you need to watch.
These panties aren't cute enough to wear.
They're yours! Oh, crap! Hey, hurry it up!
I'm ready.
Starting off our list is the Pet Girl of Sakurasou, and no, it's not the girl that turned into a dog in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Mashiro is so terrible at basic life skills that her dorm mates have to treat her like a pet. Useless for chores, dressing, you name it. But she is also surprisingly cute in her helplessness, which, hey, we always gotta focus on the positives of life. The guy stuck taking care of her Sarada is just amazed by Mashiro's bizarre behavior, and I would be too, because how can someone survive like that? But as this odd couple's bickering comedy unfolds, an unexpectedly genuine bond starts to form between the unlikely pair. What seemed like a trashy Eki plot turns into a tender tale of found family secrets and falling in love. Honestly, this anime is so underrated that it's just criminal right now. The show might have a bit of fan service, but it just hits so deep, and the entire plot is so good because of how they mix it in with the character dynamics. The animation is also well done, and I promise my firstborn son that it's going to make you cry.
You could hear the sound of pages turning in this story, and they would echo like my footsteps moving towards destiny.
For all you historical fantasy junkies out there, this godly animated medieval fairy tale reimagining is something you have to add to your watch list, because if you don't, I will find you, and I will make you watch it. Our heroine, Shirayuki, has to flee her kingdom after the sleazy prince makes some rather sus moves on her for her hot red locks. She eventually gets a job with another far more chilled-out prince who values her spirit and her skills in herbology. From there, a slow-burn love storyline explores the massive class gap between a commoner and royalty. But it's not just another cliché romance story about a girl trying to find love. We get to see Shirayuki as an empowered hero, and serves as a touching family drama. Definitely one of the most selfless and inspirational heroines of recent anime. Because what's better than an independent woman? What makes it different is the fact that our girl isn't just some random damsel in distress. She can beat your butt, and I am so into that. Ask anyone who has watched this show, and they'll tell you for a fact that it is just a great watch. To people who've watched this, comment if you think this is good, because for me, it was.
野蛮人め。
今日こそどっちが上か。
はっきりさせてあげるわ。
Imagine if Shakespeare's most famous romantic tragedy was hit by a massive, Japanizing high school romantic comedy beam from the future. That's basically the out-of-this-world concept of this underrated gem, and it just works. The Black Doggy and White Cat's dorm rivalry at the elite Dahlia Academy is an all-out prank war. The leader of the Black Doggies, Romeo. And yes, Romeo with an I is up against the leader of the White Cats, Juliet. But to everyone's surprise, these two only pretend to be bitter enemies and are secretly lovey-dovey lovers in private. With its cute character designs and a genuinely wholesome feel to it, Boarding School Juliet turns one of history's most famous doomed romances into an infectious romantic comedy that will never make you bored. It embraces the absurdity of its premise and doesn't even take itself very seriously. To be honest, I would rather watch this than read about the original 100 times, and still can't believe that Romeo killed himself without making sure Juliet was truly dead. This anime just makes you laugh like hell, and I'm all for it.
ありがとう。
何言ってるの。これからじゃない。よろしくお願いします。
This series takes the romantic Wattpad fanfic concept of soulmates torn apart by other dimensions and pumps it straight up into your veins. Takasaki is your average loner, until one of his female classmates claims she and her boyfriend were lovers back in the 85th dimension. Yeah, I know that setup sounds totally bananas already and honestly very, very sus. But what we have here is a truly insane and amazing exploration of how love can exist outside space and time, and even time itself. When that reality-bending sci-fi premise is paired with the show's more grounded dramatic arcs, it creates this mind-bending madness that is also an incredibly relatable emotional truth. I also really recommend watching the companion film to me, The One Who Loved You, alongside the show. It connects in a way that will absolutely shatter your heart and soul. There's even a neat trick where the story changes depending on which film you watch first. It's so cool and so sad that it's so underrated. Some anime don't even have a plot, then there's this series putting the entire storyline of the Avengers to shame.
Can we just stay friends for now?
Forget being friends. After that, we never spoke again.
Do you find modern society unbearably cringe and want to just tap out of social obligations altogether? Well, then you'll probably relate a lot with Hachiman Hikigaya, the sarcastic snob at the center of this wildly underrated romantic comedy. Or you could just be a weirdo. It's just either of the two. Hachiman is literally that 15-year-old misanthropic teen who has given up on the whole thing of forging human relationships like romance, friendship, status, whatever. My boy is just done. But this reclusive loner is forced to step outside his comfort zone to join the school's service club, and that's when his entire life just changes. When you look at it closer, Oregairu isn't exactly reinventing any trope, but what makes the show great is how raw it portrays Hachiman's struggle to overcome his alienation, as well as the human emotions of the other characters. It's one of those rare series that actually have a lot of substance because it will just hit the spot.
When it comes to you, Lauren, I'm here for a different reason. A completely selfish one. I promise to protect you forever.
Do you not want those disgusting ecchi harem anime? Are you done with all the unnecessary fan service that's going around? Well, open your Bible and get ready to be holy once more with Saint Cecilia and Pastor Lawrence. This chaste affair between a literal saint and a faithful pastor is the best palate cleanser for a more PG, family-friendly romance, free of the plague of teen hormones. In the rural pastoral village setting, we have Saint Cecilia, a virgin young woman who protects the town with her divine powers. But what the upright Pastor Lawrence fails to see is that Cecilia herself has secret, unclean feelings of affection for him, and it is just so cute. The way the series treats the innocent, sweet love of two faithfully holy people struggling with forbidden feelings unquestionably makes this entire anime so unique and fresh. If you're sick of cheap harem pranks and horniness, this show's simple and wholesome story will maybe even make you become a pastor yourself. But just don't expect any saints to come to you.
さっき言ったろ。
そうだった。ごめんね。
山田のこんな顔、初めて見たから。
Warning. If you hate dark, gritty, seriously uncomfortable stuff right off the bat, then The Dangers in My Heart is not for you. But that's just only episode 1, because the rest of the series is wholesome as hell. Our main protagonist, Kyutaru, looks the part of the typical lonely guy, but he has a secret. Deep inside, he's just a psychopath who wants to see his classmate Yamada in pain. But again, it becomes something much better. You see, after that, and once the two interact, Kyutaru immediately falls for her and even starts to protect her. The best part about this series is that Kyutaru is no wimp. He's ready to say his mind and even his feelings. I have to say that there were no insanely cringe scenes in this series, and I actually enjoyed most of it. The best part was that it did a really great job of portraying realistic human emotions that most anime right now couldn't even do, because they just exaggerate everything. This is the anime that I would say you shouldn't judge because of its cover. Bye-bye. Let's get back to some more familiar romantic territory. Specifically, the setup of the effortlessly popular guy catching feelings for the shy, unremarkable girl in his class that we've seen a million times before. But We Were There adds a little bit of spice into the mix. Yano Motoharu is basically high school royalty. He's the varsity basketball MVP and the most sought-after bachelor in school. So when he inexplicably starts dating the meek wallflower Nanami Takahashi, it registers as a fantasy come true for her. But despite Yano's confident exterior, we soon discover he's carrying heavy psychological baggage from an extremely tragic past that starts to overshadow their new relationship. We Were There isn't exactly groundbreaking, but it does provide enough depth to the entire story where it's not boring either. But what makes it such a compelling watch is it dares to show awkward, disorganized, melodramatic young love. Even when watching the relatively simple art style, you just can't help but be amazed. The drama will make you remember your high school days. That's if you ever even had a relationship at that time.
Entangle, enmesh, spin a spider's web.
In an anime world overflowing with waifu lust for female characters, the ancient Magus' bride is an incredibly mature display of how real intimacy is far beyond just looks and body. Our most unlikely heroine is Chise Hattori, a high school student who was bought to become the apprentice of Elias Ainsworth, the all-powerful old wizard with the most one-of-the-coolers original character designs in generations. Instead of the typical male lead hunk aesthetic, Elias literally just has the skull and horns of some demonic goat creature. And yeah, I know her being bought is kind of weird, but stick with me here. But most of it ends in a misunderstanding. With its really unique character designs, Luceli imagined pagan folklore, and some themes that make Oregairu look like a kid's show, The Ancient Magus Bride is a truly magical romance fantasy anime that's free from the normal constraints of this genre.
目覚めよ高梨一家いや邪王心眼よ覚醒の時は来た
11 Love, Chunibyo, and Other Delusions. Okay, first things first, the word Chunibyo makes most Western audiences cringe while some don't even know what it is. It's that awkward teen stage where teens pretend to live out edgy sci-fi or fantasy power fantasies to get by, like that Naruto kid who slings hand signs around the school hallway and runs like he's a ninja. But Love, Chunibyo, takes that Chunibyoic awkwardness and turns it into an incredibly funny, compelling, and surprisingly sweet coming-of-age romantic comedy. Our two leads were massive Chunibyo outcasts as middle schoolers. But now in high school, at least one of them desperately tries to shed those delusions to reinvent themselves as normal functioning humans. Surprisingly though, they meet once again, and even though the guy tries to stop the girl from embarrassing both of them, a secret romance starts blossoming between them. It's incredibly cute and wholesome, and you might be surprised that the animation can be an absolute banger. I mean, when do you ever get to see a full-blown romance anime that have some insane action scenes? Yeah, I know, never. Except for this one. So if you don't want to cringe, make sure to like and subscribe.
Blossoming through the snow.
I'm Kyoka Kudo, head of the Kudos.
The title alone makes divorce lawyers shiver and hide behind the darkness where they came from. But in this series, is there going to be a happy marriage? We follow Miyu Saimori, an orphaned girl abandoned by her family after the death of her mother and forced into an arranged marriage with Kyoka Kudo. Just that setup alone should have you expecting some Avil husband drama, right? But surprise! From the moment Miyu and Kyoka share a roof as newlyweds, he immediately defies expectations by channeling the fairy tale good husband image. We're talking about chivalry, thoughtfulness, and unconditional love and respect towards Miyu. I wish he was my husband. It's like watching a Disney movie, you know? It has this sweetness and charm to it because he might be nice, but he can be brutally honest and genuine too. With gorgeous animation, slick writing, and a couple you'll root for every step of the way, My Happy Marriage is easily one of the best underrated romance anime up to this day. After school inspired a wave of stargazing romance anime, there was this early 2000s hidden gem, At the Mercy of the Sky, laying that dreamy, atmospheric groundwork. Our weak protagonist Mahoshi joins his school's astronomy club, not because he likes looking at the stars, but as a way to cope with his terrible insomnia. But what makes it unique is that the characters already met each other and are just having a reunion, one that would totally change their entire lives. You see, this isn't like any other romance anime out there since it's not over the top and there's no crazy plot twist or anything like that. The way it paces itself feels so natural and so smooth that you actually don't feel overwhelmed. Although it was released way back in the 2000s, the animation aged like fine wine and the jokes are still funny. There's a bunch of characters and each of them have their own unique quirks that you'll like.
なんだ、迷子？俺も遅刻。一緒に行こうよ。
Did you ever get into the big city out of your little country home to try and change things? If so, then this one's for you. That fish-out-of-water coming-of-age setup forms the foundation of this light romantic comedy. Our plucky heroine, Mitsumi Nagumo, is from the quiet Japanese countryside, but heads to a Tokyo high school to pursue more ambitious goals. But from the start, her childlike optimism and old values clash with the cynicism and snobbery of her new city, because if honest work does well in the country, you bet it ain't that way in the good old metropolitan jungle. And do, of course. As with any decent rom-com hero, Mitsumi meets a guy on her awful first day on campus. So what makes it good? Well, that's the only trope it has. The rest is warm, wholesome, and just relaxing. You could already tell that the animation is a bit different too, and it just adds to the atmosphere the anime is trying to achieve. It's the perfect anime for those who don't want any ecchi but also don't want to watch a literal saint and pastor fall in love. The perfect middle ground.
私
Hey, do you remember that sweet little slice of life series, Tamako Market, that kinda stole everybody's heart a few years ago? Well, Tamako Love Story is an officially sanctioned spin-off you've gotta watch if you missed the original show. And let me tell you, it hits differently. The Tamako Market TV series more closely followed the quirky but grounded residents of a quaint shopping area. But this movie, yup, it's a movie. It is a side story that focuses on the brewing love between Tamako and Mochizo. It also looks like they're running out of time because this is their last year in school. Yes, it's wholesome, but it's not all rainbows and sunshine. It is more intense than the original series because even though you have a feeling that they're gonna end up together, everything is just so complicated. Since it's being produced by Kyoto Animation, you already know it's got that classic art style, and the animation is high quality. Haven't watched the series? Don't worry, you can watch the entire thing by itself too. I've mentioned this before in At the Mercy of the Sky, and now it's here. But there are no repeats, no copycat plots. Insomniacs takes its own path, and there's no doubt that's one of the many reasons why it's such a good show. On the surface, we follow two Insomniacs, Ganta and Magari, who meet after school hours at their campus's stargazing observatory, a place neither knows the other has already been going to during their sleepless nights. Through a series of funny and wholesome moments, the pair gradually expose themselves emotionally to each other, developing an intimate relationship in the emptiness around them. Not gonna lie, the entire anime is already on par with Makoto Shinkai's movies in terms of animation and just straight-up vibes. You can just wholeheartedly relate to the characters' emotions and struggles, making it a series that you never get tired of watching. The impact is so intense too, and it's just a roller coaster ride all the way through. This has got to be one of the best romance anime of all time, and it's just sad that only a few people are watching it.
学校にも行ってない。友達もいない。ほら、あなたの居場所なんてこの世のどこにもないじゃない。
No, there's not a literal lion that comes here, and I'm not sure it happens in March too, but what I do know is that when you watch this series, you're gonna have to learn what shogi is. So just to give a bit of context, shogi is basically Japanese chess that looks a bit cooler and totally gives off wise grandmaster vibes. Anyway, The story follows Kiriyama, a young man who is already a pro at the game and has been beating people left and right. But like all professional competitions, there's a lot of pressure, and it affected Kiriyama too. So, to keep his mind off of it, he moved to big old Tokyo and met 3 sisters that turned his entire life upside down. But what he doesn't is that the 3 of them have an interesting past of their own. The story may start off very slow, but that's important because it sets the tone for the entire series. So if you watch a lot of fast-paced shonen, this might not be for you, buddy. Watching the entire thing is like reading a book. This is literal art. The art style also takes a unique twist and doesn't follow that Sword Art Online-ish style every single rom-com series does. This is a poem turned anime, and you need to watch it. Four, the Ice Guy and his cool female colleague. They weren't kidding when they titled this The Ice Guy and His Cool Female Colleague, because this man has quite literally ice powers. I mean, this guy could summon blizzards into the office just because he isn't relaxed, and that's just everyday life for them. It was a struggle, but somehow he got work. Anyway, that's when he meets Fuyutsuki, his calm colleague who pulls him out of trouble and makes sure that there's not going to be a single blizzard that comes into their workplace. The entire thing might be a cold mess, but believe me when I tell you that this entire series is just so warm and fuzzy. It's also a great watch if you're tired of seeing high schoolers be awkward, weird, or cringe because the characters are all adults and they even work in an office. It's kind of like Wotakoi but with a bit more magic. The best thing about this is that Fuyutsuki doesn't even comprehend what love is and she's just being nice to Himuro. You'll totally fall in love with the entire series from episode 1 alone.
ちょうだい?
Huh?
Three sing Yesterday for me right off the bat. I want you to know that this isn't a musicale, but I have to say that the soundtrack is a complete banger. This series is deep, full of emotion and depth, and it's totally not for someone who just wants to turn off their brain and relax on the weekend. You see, Rikuo was bored out of his mind and was working at a convenience store in the middle of Tokyo. That was his everyday life and he just accepted it. But that was until he met Haru, who quickly became his new friend. Then his old college crush was moving back to Tokyo and reached out to her. Now you might already get an idea of where I'm headed, because things are about to get really complicated for us and for Rikuo. He's being torn between the past and the future, and you'll have to watch the series to know what happens next. If you've been friend-zoned, this hits deep. Not only that, the characters are super interesting and you can tell that they've been written insanely well. Everything just gives off that realistic feeling and you can relate to almost every situation they're being put in. All I have to say is that they should have added more episodes because it wasn't enough. Okay, the entire thing wasn't made in black and white, but you'll get why the title is that in a minute or two. You see, just like the previous guy in Sing Yesterday for me, Tsukishiro's life is pretty mundane and boring and nothing interesting just happens to make it colorless. Now, let me cook. But his grandmother goes Steins Gate mode and sends him back 60 years in the past when his grandmother was still in high school and he doesn't even know what he's doing there. He meets Yuito Aoi and his world starts to fill with color again. You see what I did there? But again, just from the synopsis I just gave you, the entire thing seems a bit confusing. However, when you start watching it, you'll quickly realize that this underrated show has a lot more to offer. It's literally an adventure, and every episode you get to know new things about the characters in the story as a whole. The character development is insane, and the twist too. But I won't spoil it because I care for you, Ibs. Oh, and don't ask me if he falls in love with his grandma because, yeah, it's a secret. One Say I Love You. Last but not least, we have an anime that literally screams romance and is so underrated. The day it becomes mainstream is when pigs start to fly. I'm talking about Say I Love You, and this is why you should watch it. You see, in this series, Tachibana was betrayed by her friends, and ever since then she never wanted to make more because it just hurt, man. Those of you who experienced that might relate a lot with her too. But her entire life was changed when she met Yamato Kurosawa, the popular boy who asked her out. Even though she hesitated, she agreed, and a roller coaster ride of a series started. Yes, the animation isn't like anything we have today because this was released way back in 2012, and you could see it does have some resemblances with Kimi no Todoke. But what I do have to tell you is that it is just as good too. The story, the characters, the drama, all of it was mixed in really well. You could feel the emotional depth and character growth in this one. I just can't put enough of it into words, and you just have to watch it to know what I mean.